Morning, Dr. Fields. First and
Good
foremost,
morning, sir.
thank you for allowing me to lead a section of the District Site-Based Decision-Making Committee. I know the Facilities Committee is near and dear to your heart in so many ways. So again, thank you for allowing me to be a part of it.
Absolutely. I'm excited for the run through. I really am.
Well, and that's what brings me next. So the goal of this meeting is to update the District Site-Based Decision-Making Committee on the work of the Facilities Planning Committee. Our part here is just for me to kind of provide you the plan for that meeting. So our goal is to update the committee, and I believe utilizing the slides that we've had from our first Facilities Committee meeting and then portions of the second upcoming meeting should hopefully provide a concise overview. Your thoughts?
Yes. I don't think we need to go into the same level of detail with this particular group. It's, obviously we don't have the same time constraints, and we don't have the two separate meetings we've done with the facility committee. But I think a lot of the context we provided in some of the other meetings with the facility committee was about the actual facility committee work, and that's just not relevant to this group. So yes, I think taking those portions will be appropriate.
And I think they would appreciate it, just being the site-based committee.
Absolutely.
So as you've seen on the agenda that I provided, my plan is kind of start with an overview of student enrollment across the Metroplex, and then bring it down into Mesquite, and particularly how our growth in the South Side is there and our growth in the North Side is diminishing or non-existent.
Yeah, that's super important.
I think the next important piece is going to be to give some context within the facilities audit or assessment that took place through WRA. That way they can kind of understand the different components to a degree, right? We just need to provide some context, not a lot.
Just trying to stay high level because, we could really get into the weeds of the details of the facility needs assessment. So yes.
And then next, I think seeing the support of the community for it. So I know that we've sent out surveys to community members at large, those who have residents who have children in Mesquite ISD employees who don't live within Mesquite ISD, but also targeting community members who don't have children within the school district to gauge, because they're also taxpayers. And so showing them through the different slides and the support that we see from our community as a whole.
And Mike, if I could just share with you with that particular point, I think setting that context so that they understand this isn't about your own personal preferences. This is about us thinking about what our community is telling us, so that they kind of step back from their own personal interests as much as possible and really think about it from the context of what the survey results are indicating.
I would agree. I think that everyone has a vested interest, and so trying to pull yourself out of that vested interest to look at it overall can be difficult at times. So hopefully this helps set the stage for that. And then the last component, which will be probably the take up the majority, is that prioritization simulation. And so we've discussed previously that part of the second facilities committee meeting is going to be having the committee members prioritize what we need to do with our schools and our ancillary buildings to determine how are we setting priorities for this. So it's correct that you want to use the simulation as kind of a beta test, a first run to understand their thinking and to kind of refine the process.
Yeah, and Mike, just for your context, as you're in this learning process, when we started this work around the facility committee planning, the architect that we're partnering with kind of gave us a map of how these meetings should pan out. Right. And that's what we followed for meeting one. And we decided that we needed to make some customizations for our district, our community, the people on the committee specifically. Just felt like some of what guidance we had received wasn't quite appropriate for the group that we're meeting with, and that we needed to make it our own. And so this activity is from scratch. It's something that Sabrina, our chief of communications, and I kind of put our heads together and said this might be a good route to go. So that's why doing a run through of this is critically important, because it's our own ideas around, what we think would be most effective for the group. So yes, that is the purpose, but I wanted you to understand that, taking something that is given to you by the architect, they gave us a map for meeting 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you could take that and do it, but it's not nearly as effective as paying attention to what your community is telling you they want and need and who's in the room and customizing it for them.
Well, I agree. I know that it's still in the works, so I hope to wrap my head around it before we get in front. But I think we'll be okay regardless. But yeah, and I do enjoy the authenticity of. I mean, there's something to be said about the own creation, the Trailblazer, and yeah, custom fitting it towards our community.
Yeah.
Lastly, I had on the agenda was just to discuss, because it is a district site-based decision-making committee, it should be a mix of community members, district personnel. I know often community members of influence try to be as close to part of the district as possible, since we are one of the largest employers of the city. Is there anyone I should potentially be aware of?
I'm glad you asked that question, because
names aren't necessary, but we can do that.
We have somebody on our site-based committee who used to be a civic leader, an elected civic leader, and she's trying to get reelected. So I'll just leave it at, leave the specifics to that much detail. She is somebody who has very strong opinions, asks a lot of questions in different settings, can really dominate conversations. So your facilitation is going to be critical in making sure that she walks away feeling heard, and as though her role on the committee is authentic and meaningful and purposeful, but also so that she doesn't take away from everybody else's participation. She kind of has a dual interest here. One is she cares about the district and what we do, but she also might have a tendency to use it as a platform for herself as she continues to try to be reelected. And so, try to keep that in the back of your mind. I don't know if you've had interactions with her before, but she talks a lot and asks a lot of questions.
I can't say specifically I have. However, I think we've all experienced someone who's very inquisitive and loquacious. And so I will do my best. That is a piece that I know part of our standards are when I believe it's effective, forceful speaking. And so that's always a work in progress for me. It's tiptoeing that fine line between being respectful, but also making sure the person's heard. And so I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Everybody else should be just fine. I think they'll just be real eager, equal participants. She's really the only person who I think might need some navigating.
Okay. Well, that's all I had for you, Dr. Field. So I appreciate you meeting with us. And then again, allowing me to take part in the facilities committee process. I know, again, it's near and dear to your heart. It's probably almost all consuming, but I do understand the importance of it and the impact that it does have for our school district and community.
Mike, I know you're going to do a great job. I'm excited.
Oh, well, thank you.
Mike, Mr. Parati is in the process of earning his doctorate as well as completing his superintendent certification. And so part of that process is he gets to hang with me a lot and partner with me on a number of projects. And so he's going to lead you through tonight's conversation about where we are with the facility needs assessment and the facilities committee. With that, you're on.
Thank you, Dr. Fields. So first and foremost, let me make sure we're on the right slide. Okay, there we are. The district is always reviewing facility needs, and of course we're addressing them. But periodically, we need to look at long-term planning. So general needs of the district, you can see are posted here. Growth in the south, declining enrollment in the north, aging facilities, the need for storm shelters, secure vestibules for safety, technology upgrades, bus replacements, and basic maintenance. So we know that these are the general needs, but we've also done a more comprehensive facility needs assessment as well. So what you see here is a heat map. This is of the Metroplex. So as you can see in the top left, we look at the 21-22 enrollment versus 23-24 enrollment trends. In your deep red, the top left, what you see is districts that have grown by 10% or more of student enrollment. So you see your Forneys, your Crandall ISD, Princeton, Prosper, Argyle. In your yellow, you see districts that have grown between 1 to 10% of enrollment. Your HEBs, your Ponders, your Little Elm. In gray, well, I think it's gray, it's kind of purplish here. You've got areas that are flat, districts that have grown plus or minus 1%. So they've been pretty steady. And then you have declines of enrollments. So you're greater than negative 1%. So Highland Park ISD, Dallas ISD, you can see that they are losing students from 2021 all the way to 2023, 24. But one thing to keep in mind is Mesquite has held steady. Taking a deeper look into our district, what we see is these are broken up by elementary attendance zones. Our growth is uneven. We can see in the south side, in the deep green and the lighter green, here we have more growth, while on the north side, that blue and deeper blue are the elementary enrollment numbers are smaller. This is a 5-year plan, so between 2019 and 20 versus 23, 24.
And Mike, if you don't mind me jumping in, when you think about the heat map that Mike just shared with you, our enrollment has remained steady compared to the districts around us, but because we know that the northern part of our school district is an aging area of our community, we know we're continuing to face a declining enrollment over time. It's not as steep as some of the districts around us, but it is gently declining, and that is why on this next slide, we put in place an open enrollment process this last year to invite families who want their children to attend school in Mesquite ISD but don't live in our attendance zone to participate in school here. They go through a pretty rigorous application process and there's just a short window of application, and this was our first year of doing it. So the numbers you see off to the right are the number of students we allowed entrance into our school district by the feeder pattern zone, and that is all in an attempt to make sure that we don't end up in the same situation some of our neighboring school districts are in, where they're closing some schools because of declining enrollment. You'll see that in Garland, you see it in Richardson, you see it in Plano. We are trying to avoid that, and part of this open enrollment process was to shore up our attendance in the northern end of our school district to make sure that we don't enter into that same situation.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
So, I'm new to the area. I mean, do y'all know why is the enrollment so vastly different?
There's just a ton of construction down south, a lot of new homes being built, families moving in, and so all of that land is being developed, and it's being developed pretty rapidly. Where on the northern end, all of that construction has been in place, and in large part because of some of the economic situations people are facing and the interest rates. If we do have aging families who no longer have children in school, they haven't moved anywhere because of the situation, the financial situation in the larger area. And so a lot of families are just staying put, which means that northern end that has a lot of aging families with no children hasn't increased in enrollment. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
So last year, WRA conducted a comprehensive facility assessment. All 52 campuses, 21 support facilities. As you can see in the bold, what they were looking for are architectural, mechanical, plumbing, electrical, technology, food service, and roofing issues that could be affecting our facilities for 10 plus years. Also, because it is comprehensive, information was gathered from the school district projections and demographers, from also a True North safety and security study, the MISD departments, and again, comprehensive, so you have the athletic department, construction services, facilities management, tech services, food nutrition services, and the transportation department. The goal was to put all of our facilities into 4 categories based upon the expected ability to allocate resources to fulfill the needs. So 4 priorities were created. Your priority 1, that is the resources could be allocated within 1 to 2 years. Priority 2, 3 to 5. Priority 3, 6 to 10 years. And then priority 4 was 10 plus years. What we see is the average age of schools in the United States is 49 years. Mesquite ISD is sitting at 30. That's an important piece because, as we see the next slide, when we start talking about prioritization concerns, what we've found is that there are 4 characteristics that we have to address. Safety and security, and that comes from Mesquite ISD identified, so our own safety and security people have identified that, but also TEA continues to have mandates each year that are typically unfunded. Enrollment capacity versus expected growth, so again, as we talk about the north and the south sides. The age of the facility and the time since its last improvement, and this is where I'll point out all the campuses in red that you see in facilities, those have seen significant work, whether it's an addition, whether it's a replacement in the last 10 years. Hence that 30 years compared to the 49 on average. Mesquite's been very good about taking care of its facilities. And then of course, a comprehensive facility assessment incorporates walks. We have to walk the campus, put our eyes on it, and determine what level and what issue it has between a 1 and a 4. So the facility assessment yields 2 different components. You've got your aging facility needs. So these are older buildings that have ADA compliance updates, whether it's needing restroom revisions, whether it's hardware, playground equipment. You also had code adoption updates. So tornado shelters. If we add 1 square foot to a building, we have to add a tornado shelter that will accommodate the entire campus. Also fire sprinklers, fire alarms. And then the other part is the general facade, replacing the finishes and the surfaces due to just general wear and tear that happens. The other component is your end-of-life cycle replacement needs. These are, for those homeowners, you know your air conditioner is going to go out at some point, correct? So that's going to have an end-of-cycle need that you have to prepare for. The district has to do the same. That comes with roofing. It comes with electrical, whether it's switches, whether it's panels. It happens with boilers, water heaters, plumbing fixtures, kitchen equipment, whether it's inside the kitchen or even the serving line, light fixtures, and finally HVAC, which as homeowners we all know that can get costly. So here's an example of one part of when they do a architectural assessment. You'll see this is Mesquite High. It gives the location, it gives how it's serviced in the district, also the year it was built, the 6 years of additions that it's had, plus the 1 major renovation over the years, gives the square foot, and then of course the campus narratives on the side, over there. So, in order to tackle all of this, we require a committee of representatives to help figure out how are we going to tackle such a big task. You'll see that it's approximately 40 people. They range in trustees, to retired and current staff, to students, students from each feeder pattern, and then traditional supporters of the district. So, in order to understand this, we also wanted to gauge how the community felt about potential issues that we could face and ways that we could tackle this. So, a survey was given to kind of understand the perceptions and to determine, is a bond possible? So, you might have seen this. It was distributed through social media. There are the 3 things, email. The 3 things email go out to parents. There's also one that goes out to staff. So we're looking at those constituents as well. And then finally, postcards to voters. So what's important about that is this will all have to be voted on, but it may be someone that's not an employee or doesn't have a child in the district. So this is a way to reach the community members that are potentially retired who don't have children in Mesquite. And so those results were shared and at the meeting and on the website. And so we have a few for you. This first one asks, how satisfied are you with the quality of education in Mesquite ISD? If we see this, it is about 89% in the positive, which is somewhat satisfied and very satisfied. So we know that we're educating the students and that our constituents feel good about that. The next piece is, what do you feel the greatest need for Mesquite ISD? Rank the highest to the lowest. The highest concern, the highest and greatest need for Mesquite ISD are renovations and additions to current facilities. The next is improvement in security, followed by update technology, and then of course to build new or replacement facilities. The next piece that falls down below that is improved traffic flow, which is still a 4.09. We don't really control that, but if you've been in an elementary pickup line, you know that, yeah, you want to control the traffic flow as much as possible.
How much I hear about that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot.
It's a lot, yes ma'am. The next piece we had was the level of agreement that education should be a top priority, even if we need to raise taxes to improve our schools. Approximately 70% agreement. During this time of inflation, 70% of the roughly 900 responses, correct, Dr. Fields?
Correct.
Said that yes, if we have to raise taxes, they are willing to do it. That says a lot. Would you support a bond election if necessary to build educational facilities in addition to existing facilities? Looking backwards, we have about 15% that said that that would be unlikely, 19% neutral, but if you combine your somewhat and your very, you're looking at approximately 65% that would support a bond. Again, very unlikely, or very unusual in a time like this.
And Mike, if I could jump in as well, the function of the facility committee is not to determine if we should go for a bond or not. The function of the facility committee is to give input about priorities, what they think the community wants, and make a recommendation to our trustees about what we should do. The trustees are the only ones who can make the determination about whether or not we should go for a bond. And so that decision is left entirely up to them. So this is, again, as Mike said, it's pulse checking, getting a sense of what our community has the appetite for, but that ultimate decision is made by the Board of Trustees. So I'm going to stop there because I know you're going to go through the calendar of meetings.
Correct.
Okay.
So, in addition to the facility needs, the committee will need to weigh some financial factors. First and foremost, the ballot language. We know that the new laws or new legislation that says the way that ballots have to be, the language that falls on the ballot. The district capacity. How much debt can the district take on at one time? The pacing. When do we issue the bonds? Which projects do we start? And which order? Again, that prioritization. And then finally, inflation. We know the cost of construction over time continues to rise more and more and more and more. So there's a lot to consider. Should we consider a bond? What factors need to be considered? In order to do this, there's been a call to action for the committee. So why are they here? To continue the investing in our kiddos, we need to do three things. Ensuring facilities are safe and secure, providing our students with engaging, inviting learning spaces, and being good stewards of the existing and aging facilities. So we've had one meeting thus far, and that was the state of the district and to review the needs and the survey results. The second meeting is coming up in 2 weeks, and so that's where they will understand how schools are funded. Bond 101, so Mr. Prado will discuss all the fun of school finance, and then initial, how do we prioritize the different components. Within the third meeting, refine the priorities and options, review financial implications, and the fourth one is to make a final recommendation that Dr. Rivera will take to the board. So, where we need your help, we are going to do a prioritization simulation. It's fun, say that 3 times fast. What we'll do is we're going to hear the conversations that you're having to gain your perspectives. That's the goal behind this. Because what we want to do is refine this protocol for the committee to hear what they believe would work. So, we've got some cards that are going to pass around.
And I'm thinking just for best discussion, given how many people we have in the room, probably centering around 2 tables, equally sized and distributed groups.
So as Dr. Fields is passing out cards, I'm going to explain what they are, kind of the format for them, and then lead you through them. So you'll see there are different facilities that are all represented on cards. You'll see the picture of the facility, the emblem of the facility. You'll also see bullet points for each one. So while you all have the cards there, I'm going to move on to the next slide so you can use those as your pieces. So the context, we talk replacement cycles. We're talking buses, technology, and roofs. And then I believe the roof details didn't make it on the cards, just go right.
Yes.
You'll also see significant versus basic improvements. Again, we talked that the district has general needs, but the district has comprehensive needs as well. And so you'll see the differences listed on the bullet points. Keep in mind the high growth areas, the areas of the south side of the district where growth is continual. We'll also see a pre-K facility. And with that, I see that we have some excitement with that. But with that, the need, we see this in our early data all the time. So sorry, early literature data, when we give universal screeners and other batteries, that pre-K is the precursor to higher achievement faster. And so the idea of a pre-K facility. We also talk storm shelters. Storm shelters are very important to the safety of students. However, they're also very costly. And so that's a piece to grapple with. And then our secure vestibules, the areas where parents come in, and it's that holding area back and forth between coming into the building and having access to the students and the teachers. Also, what you're going to find are facilities without cards. And so you might have seen that on the previous slide, those facilities that had the red fonts or the red coloring that have recently been updated or upgraded. You'll also see that they also had storm shelters and secure vestibules, and that the district believes that they can manage those improvements within the next 7 to 8 years with a general budget. So, acting as the facilities committee, remember what we're here to do is to hear your conversations. So, remember the call to action. Ensure that our facilities are safe and secure. Provide our students with the engaging, inviting learning spaces. And then being good stewards of the existing and aging facilities. So what we have next for you is the sorting process. Okay, so if you'll look at your large sheets through here, you'll see it's broken into 4 quadrants. You've got the high urgency. So that high urgency, you'll see notices on 2 different quadrants. That is the need that should not wait until the major facilities plan, so 3 to 4 years. So an example, which is listed here, to rebuild a building in extremely poor condition with related safety and security issues. Questions about what high urgency feels like, looks like? Okay. High impact. So you also have high impact, which is resolving the need as a significant benefit for many. So the example is ensuring all campuses have interior and exterior high definition security cameras. Well, that's important, correct? So what we want to do is figure out with our cards, what do we feel is low impact and low urgency? But let's keep in mind, not every card can be high impact and high energy, or excuse me, high urgency.
We do not have money for that.
We don't have the money. There's also time constraints.
Yes.
So you're constrained with that. There are more needs than we can address at one time. How much debt can the district manage? What kind of tax impact would our community be able to support? And then too many large-scale projects at one time. It expands the construction timeline, and it's also an increased cost. And then here's the part that we often overlook, that we can't interrupt school. That school has to go on August 14th, 15th, whatever that first day of school is. And then we also need to have summer school classes as well. So we can't impact every facility at the same time. And then, of course, campus storm shelters. It takes 2 summers because often when you build the storm shelter, you also have to update the sprinkler system and the fire alarm, which is a very long, in-depth process. Oh, so what we're going to ask you to do is go ahead and sort at this time.
Just pass them around.
If you like, it may be best, you're going to pass out cards to individuals, and you're going to sort them yourself first, and then place them on, and then have your conversations from there.
My suggestion is, whatever card you have, read it to the group. You might want to have a quick conversation, make sure that the group comes to some form of agreement about what quadrant it lands in. When Mike and I were talking about this, I want to remind everyone, you're not making a decision here. So don't get so hung up about what quadrant you're putting it in. We're listening to your conversations to inform decisions, and we're trying to gauge, generally speaking, how people are prioritizing things. So again, not everything can land in high impact, high urgency, even if you feel like it should, because we can't do all the projects. And what we really need to hear from you is, if you had to place things in other categories, what would they be? Not a decision-making process right now, just getting input and insights from you while you have your conversations at the table.
So we'll give you 15-ish minutes, and we'll see how it goes from there.
Okay. I'm going to start with the pre-K. I find this to be high urgency. And I'm gonna say that because we have so many within a 10-year period. Solterra we will have more than 10,000 homes in the southern sector between Solterra.
So I hear you thinking it's going to impact, and high impact, and touch most of the district.
It will touch most of our elementary schools.
But not as much urgency as some of the other things that we have, and these are pretty big expenditures. So,
Okay, technology replacement cycle, replace classroom displays used for instruction, average age of television used for instruction, 8 to 10 years old. Replacement would continue throughout Lincoln.
that's a priority, anything to do
Is the
with
remaining part of the building not touched.
teaching and making it better and easier for kids. I just find that a priority.
And the other one is from personal experience.
When you say something about that, just did you know
Not after that.
that?
What would you have done?
That upkeep, would that be?
If
You're thinking about, I mean, that's every screen in every classroom across the district.
One campus. They fund that differently, don't they? You have funding that does instruction and things like that.
So
And
the
then you have
INS.
different funding that does this.
So INS, if it's part of the bond package, then yes, it can be funded through the INS.
Are we talking the technology? It likely will have to be a different proposition than that, but it still will be funded. Yeah. It just was.
So I was right, but then, okay.
Just like athletic facilities would have to be a separate proposition, which we're not talking about.
I think we've got about a minute and a half left.
Okay.
3 cards, we can do this 30 seconds each.
Okay, and then you have the replacement cycle, so
No information really. We don't have that information yet. This is center where, this is where we're just not
what do you
sure.
want to do with that technology?
Technology needs, I think, needs to always be in a high impact, that's my opinion.
And it says that it's average is 8 to 10 years old currently.
Anybody who works with computers or anything like that knows anything after 4.
See, not to be sexist.
I know, and ask them the same question after this group, and then we can do the younger ones, all right?
But enrollment is currently at 50%.
My wife don't
So I said it's a higher.
I would want to say that too, I agree.
All right, last card. I want to ask your input on only this one, and it's not that you placed it in the website, but I said on this card that there is overcrowding at the Horn Field House due to increased enrollment, and it's the remaining part of the building that hasn't been remodeled to accommodate the increased enrollment. Would you put this somewhere else? Because it really isn't about athletics. What it is the one part of town that hasn't been touched as the development has exploded down there. And it is wall-to-wall kids.
I lectured there, so we prayed in there. We were very tight.
So I don't want to inaccurately or influence, but I also want to accurately characterize what the issue is here. So this is more, I'm troubleshooting for 2 weeks from now and asking your input.
Okay, say that again. Say what you just said again.
Something
It
along the
hasn't been
lines
touched
of
at all since Horn was built. The old piece that has not been touched or brought to
the
date.
existing construction, existing square footage, overcrowding due to increased enrollment, the only remaining part of Horn High School that has not been remodeled due to the increased enrollment. Something to that effect.
Anybody that is involved in this, like the
Well, that would be building an entirely another school.
But it would have been a different conversation if I put this on there. And where do you think you would have put it then?
I would probably Considering the urgencies that we had, it would make a high impact. I don't know if it would have made a high urgency, but it would have made high impact. What do you guys think?
Because of the experience.
I don't know, in my mind, I think the impact is really only. I go to the opposite end too. Show me the money, I got you. That's where I'm at. Give me the money, show me the money.
You get that at meeting 3. Okay, I'm gonna put it here, just because we're a little bit undecided. But I will add that language, yeah, that is why we're doing this, so I appreciate you guys just.
Now, I do have a thought I do want to ask you, with our growth in our solar sector, and we know have we at all had talks about another house?
Yes, we have.
Because that would alleviate a whole bunch of, and I go back to that penny wise pound foolish thing. Don't spend millions here if we can take them.
Can you help me, you're reminding me of
All right, so because you guys had such rich conversations, we want to make sure there's time that everybody can also see what the other work is done. So what we're going to ask is that we do a gallery walk. So really, one table moves over to one side, the other table moves over to the other. Take note of where people place the cards. You'll notice one table might have put some cards on a line and kind of say, we're a little inconvenient here.
We have a couple right here in the center, and we're still mulling that over.
There'll be 3 questions that we ask, and then you reflect upon. What are the common themes, or common threads between the groupings? Where do we have differences? And then, what topics were discussed that you think were most important during the entire discussion?
Just don't share them on social media.
This is for my
So if you'll take a couple minutes and determine what are the common threads in your groupings between your
Yeah, they were undecided because of details. I had the same conversation about the Hornfield house with them that I had with you guys. Roof replacement because it doesn't have the information on it, and then they couldn't decide about it.
These are the same.
Okay, these are the same.
Anything common?
And they've got. Okay.
This is the same.
These are different.
Yeah, that's different. That one's different too than ours.
outright.
Yeah.
So have you identified the common,
Do we have any of these?
common threads?
No, this
We
is.
did not. That's quite different, except the only one we have in common with the next.
We put it at,
Framing what
I think we put it here.
It was high in the environment.
High impact.
Yeah,
that's the topic.
When did we have like with high impact?
these 3. And then we also had,
All right, so it looks like the commonalities aren't too close together, the Venn diagrams not overlapping too much. So then, let's really talk about what were the important topics during the discussion. I'd love to hear from this table, what were your important topics when you guys were discussing? What kept coming up over and over?
I'm a money person. I look at the bottom line. I'm a numbers person. So I'm kind of in my mind thinking, we don't have never-ending funds, so what needs to be addressed first? And we got to talking about, okay, yes, it'd be great to have everything in one square, but use Montley as an example when we were talking about Montley. Small school, yes, where's the card on Montley? And we'll use that one as an example. It needs sufficient maintenance and improvements among the oldest of all the elementary facilities, no storm shelter, but enrollment is currently at 57% capacity. Not overwhelmed, not anything. It would be, it's not urgent. Well, where did we put it at? We had it as, it's because there's so few there at this moment, it's not going to have the hugest impact, but it is urgent. Maybe, like we were discussing, maybe defining impact, high impact, and high urgency might be good, because it's perspective. We may be looking at things differently. I'm curious because you have a lot of principals sitting over here, so you have a different perspective. So
what was the conversation around Monty? Or y'all both have the same, right? So then what was different? Let's talk about which one school or which area.
they had John Horn over here at high impact, low, high impact, high urgency.
I will tell you though that I had the same conversation with them that I had with you guys about the card and the language.
Yeah. And that's what safety.
And safety.
So I see Kimball. Kimball over at this table is high impact, high urgency, but it's also low impact, high urgency over here. What were the conversations around Kimball?
Well, I initially, to my last recollection, Kimball was a very small, and attendance was very low at Kimball. And then I got educated, and said it's way up now. But I thought it was a very low, and so that wouldn't have been a priority on me. I'd have been, okay, we don't need to address that right now at all. That would not be a priority.
Ms. Price, what did y'all talk about? When you talked about
That one was ours. So where did we have low impact? Which one did we have?
High urgency.
We had high urgency.
Low impact, high
urgency. Yes.
Yes.
So we talked about the enrollment being low. The things that needed to be done would have a high impact, but we thought that the schools that are already overcrowded would be more urgent on the list, because I think it says enrollment is over capacity, but not as much so as some of our larger schools like Horn, and that presents a huge safety issue. So anything that would stem back to safety.
Now that we're discussing Horn, again, I go back to the doctor. Horn, we have a tremendous amount of growth going to be going on in the southern sector. Do we put millions of dollars into a field house, or do we think in a broader perspective about the new school? I didn't see that on the card. But
Well, I think Horn has recently expanded, like the facility expanded, and like the school building has done a lot of expanding, but the field house is still the same size.
it is.
I appreciated, I appreciated Jennifer bringing that up, because exactly what you're talking about. But this has been so immensely helpful in anticipation of the meeting that we're having in 2 weeks, because this tells me I need to include in my presentation what is the current enrollment at Horn, what's the projected enrollment over the next 10 years, and what's been done. So that will be factored into the slide deck, because really Horn is not expected to increase much over the next 10 years.
It's not.
It's not. The
I
high
find
school
that
is
just
not.
really odd, considering the growth that we're going to have in 10 years in homes. Not to mention the fact we didn't put but one transfer student at Horn, because and that's only because there was a tie with that student to Horn. Otherwise, we wouldn't have done that.
So were there any other topics that were discussed that you felt was a common thread, just when sorting the cards, that we haven't talked about yet?
Is there a way before, because we kind of talked about, there was a slide up there that said how many years, like high impact, low urgency was what, 3 or 4? Is there a way that, like, when we're talking, it can be?
Placement.
Yeah.
Placement.
Great idea. Thank you. I'm going to leave that down too.
Okay. If there aren't any others, you can go back to your normal seats, and then we just have one more slide and a couple questions just about the activity itself.
I think can I add something
Absolutely.
about that? It might also help too to add the student to staff ratio. When you're talking about numbers, being a school that has like 200 students versus a school like Horn, just to kind of give a little insight. There might not be much difference between the student to staff, but I think
I would be interested in knowing that also.
yeah, I think it paints a different picture if we're talking about overcrowding at a small school versus overcrowding at a large school.
if we wouldn't know the student to staff ratio.
Okay.
I'm a firm believer that overcrowding has a definite impact on student success too, or the lack thereof. It's hard to give students the attention and the direction and kind of pinpoint kids that may need a different way of learning when you are so overwhelmed and so crowded.
I just have a quick question. Is it common to see such a big difference of opinion when it comes to administrators doing this type of task who are in the thick of it, as opposed to community members or people who aren't?
Can I answer that? Yes. Do you know why? Because we have not bridged the gap of education from this side. We have MISDs, two separate. This is why every neighborhood meeting we have, I want to see MISD involved. I take Kevin Carver or whoever I can grab with me every time, because I want to be accessible. I want people to feel like they can ask questions, because there's no dumb question.
And that's why with the facility committee.
We have over 40, and it's a mix of current and former employees.
For this activity, we are going to have placemats with names so that people are, so that we strategically have cross-sectional groups, so that we have a lot of dialogue. So school personnel can share their perspectives. We can hear the perspectives of community members and come to consensus. So really important part of the committee meeting.
So based on the process itself, what worked?
On this process, I like this because you can divide it down.
We can divide it down. Dr. Williams, you said you just enjoyed the process itself.
The conversation.
The conversations were rich from it. Okay.
Perspectives.
Perspectives.
Something outside of your own.
Which I think we've learned a lot from the two different tables about perspectives. Anything from my administrator table back there? What worked?
I mean, I agree with
How do
what
you
they
feel
said.
about the exercise?
I felt, I mean, it was great, the conversation, having this
Just seeing
conversation
the
amongst
difference
us.
here, seeing the difference here, made you stop and go,
Yes,
why is that different from how I'm seeing it?
correct, yes, especially from the community. Having that perspective from the community is really eye-opening for us.
And also, I'm sorry, I know you had you off. But just as a principal, like sometimes I've been in a situation where I'm like, we need these shades or whatever for our building, because I had all glass at Gentry, my former school, so all of our PTA meetings, we all needed sunglasses, and I wanted those shades, but then it's like, okay, that is so far low on the priority list that it's not even funny, compared to some things that need to happen at other schools, and so it does make you think, it's very eye-opening.
So we know that maybe having the set groups probably didn't work so well. Is there anything else we know about the refinement of the card? Number of portables, student staff ratio, those components that we talked about. Is there anything that just didn't work at all?
No, I think this is a good learning tool, and I think it's a good way to bring people out of a comfortable place that they think something is one way when you can listen to, when I'm looking at your cards, I'm like, and why did they see it that way? And that's from an educator's perspective. So no, I think the exercise is good.
When Mike went through the context slides, just kind of letting you know the information about what's on the slide, things to think about, and then he went through the restraints, would it have been helpful to have that information in print in front of you to reference while you were doing this? Did you think, yes? Okay.
And I know you said you're gonna make it diverse, but I would like to have heard from like a classroom teacher, like there's, I think that's really needed. Because they have a different scope of the community and us. And
And we have 5 students on the committee as well, just to your point. So they will be part of the conversation.
More clarity around what impact and urgency are for that are presented.
And I guess kind of deciding like, I don't know how y'all did it, but we just gave each one of us like 3 cards.
I split them up where we had, I think, 4 apiece.
Is that how y'all did
Yeah.
it?
So clear, explicit directions about how to distribute them and, okay.
It made me a little bit.
I didn't look, I just took them in 4, went different directions, each one.
So a couple things. Like I said, we'll be doing this at the facility committee meeting. We have about 40 people, and we will also have plenty of district personnel on hand if there's questions that come up about what do some of these cards mean. So there will be a lot of people on hand to help answer factual questions. But they'll also be listening to the conversations, and we're going to be super transparent about that. The whole point is to hear the discussion and take what people are saying to then, so we'll take pictures of the sorting just like we did here. We'll take all the input that they're hearing from the conversations, and we will put together a few packages. And at meeting 3, we will bring forward, okay, this would be, you know, if we don't want to take on much tax burden, and we really want to be super thoughtful about the debt and, you know, really be conservative, this would be an option. Here's a mid option, and here's a max option. And it's not that they'll choose A, B, or C. Then they'll be able to, you know, move some things around if the way that we presented 3 options isn't exactly how they want it. But we want to give them the starting point for, you know, where are we? What are we really considering? Do we want to go to this end? Do we want to go to this end? And then if we're going to go one end or the other, what changes or refinements to the packages do we need to make? So that's what meeting 3 will be. And to Jennifer Vidler's point, dollars will be attached. And so they'll be able to make more informed decisions about that. We very intentionally did not include dollar signs on any of these. We just want you to go with strict prioritization. And then when we put packages together, then we'll attach the dollar signs to decide what really can be managed as a
Well, knowing what we have would probably greatly change where we did. You kind of know, all in a perfect world, they'd all be right up there. But knowing how much money you have to work with, then you kind of dissect, prioritize, move away, and go with what is, it would probably take a lot off the board with what we have, is my guess.
I ask of this group, you've got a sneak preview that the facility committee hasn't even seen yet, and they really are the official body that is to process this. So we have 2 weeks to go until they have an opportunity to do this. I'd really appreciate it if you would just keep the activity to yourself, your insights, your thoughts about the cards, what's on the cards. All of this, of course, is going to be posted on our website. As soon as the facility committee finishes meeting 2, we'll post the information about meeting 2. But I don't want to dishonor the purpose of that committee. But also at the same time, what you have done here tonight, your input and what you've been saying about the facilities is immensely helpful. But I cannot tell you how much better this process will be watching you guys go through it and listening to your feedback. So thank you so much. It's an important process. We want it to feel authentic and meaningful and informative for them, and this has been very helpful. So I thank you for that.
I think it's good to do it with a smaller group, because when you think about 40 people in there.
It's going to be a little hot.
It's going to be a little more time.
Yeah, and we'll be at Motley.
Because I really want to know, I really want to kind of try to sit down and kind of have a mental connection with, okay, why we felt one way and why we saw things maybe a little bit different. We do have a principle.
And as you do that, as Dr. Field says, there's 2 weeks until the committee has a meeting. So any insights that you have, feel free to email Dr. Field. You can email me, and I can give them over to Dr. Fields. But your perspectives are valuable, and we appreciate your time.
Did you mention that on each of those schools you would put like projected growth for learning and enrollment?
Knowing if it's just that basic information, because the high growth ones have that on there, but the other ones did not. So consistent verbiage about enrollment. Okay.
Potential growth.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay.
Dr. Fields, you want to close this out completely? Or?
You know, well, first I want to say thank you.
Good morning, Dr. Fields. I appreciate you meeting with me on a weekend. I know that you've had a very busy schedule.
No problem. Happy to visit with you.
Well, thank you. And again, thank you for allowing me to present. It was a great experience. It went a little bit longer than I thought it would. So I'm going to have to cut down a lot of that video. But again, thank you for the opportunity. So I would say overall, despite not having the number of participants that we thought we would have, I thought it went well. I thought we were able to show and gather input from stakeholders to support the goals of the district, our call to action to ensuring that we have safe and secure facilities, provide engaging and inviting learning environments, and secure facilities, and to be good stewards of the existing and aging facilities. I thought that was evident, and that our stakeholders were able to understand that through the survey data that we collected. Would you say the same?
I would, Mike. I think you did a really good job of selecting which pieces of information to share with them, which ones were most important to give them the context. Yeah, and I think I think it went really well. I think your facilitation of it was great, and I think it was a great balance of information to let them engage meaningfully.
Thank you. You know, at first with any presentation, I was a little nervous, but I found the groove, and your support was definitely appreciated. I thought another piece that we're able to do were through a variety of ways to specifically the SORT, to kind of observe our community's thinking and the processing, and especially hearing their explanations through the debrief. I think that showed that we had a vested interest in what they were doing in terms of providing that support for our community, as well as the context of, the context of the bond itself, or potential bond itself.
Yeah, I think so too. They, you know, hearing what they had to say. I mean, it was great to see them engaged and really having meaningful conversations, but there was so much that I gleaned just from listening to their conversations that's going to inform our work moving forward.
I found it interesting that with the card sorting itself, and I think that was a great, I know it was original, a great idea in that we were able to show the issues that we had within the district, and help them not necessarily prioritize, but made them aware of the issues within the district in terms of the cyclical cycles of busing and roofs and potentials for significant repairs versus basic repairs, and so that frequency versus impact. I think that gathered a lot of information. One piece that I appreciate the heads up on was that one former civic leader. I think that was the identifying of that opinion leader, and then allowing her to have her input. I tried my best to respectfully interject and kind of move things forward, but I think that's still a learning process for me. I'm not sure if your portion will make the cut of the video, because I think our video was 1 hour and 20 minutes, so I can't turn that much in. But I found it very helpful, and as a learning piece for myself, when they begin to inhale is when you acknowledge what they were previously saying, but then move the rest of the group forward, because it's that natural pause. Was that a piece that you had to learn yourself, or did that just come natural?
No, it's a learned piece. You know, when you are encountering those diverse groups and external stakeholders, I think the more you interact with them and get a feel for when to do that and how to do that, it comes with time, like you said. You really did a great job of redirecting the conversation, honoring what was said, moving it along. I don't want you to discount your skill in that. There was no point throughout the entire meeting where I felt like anybody unnecessarily dominated the conversation or took us off in the wrong direction. And that's because of you, because if you hadn't have facilitated it the way that you would have, that particular individual would definitely have taken it she would have taken it her own direction.
Well, Dr. Field, I know it's Saturday morning, Read Play Talk is coming up soon, so I don't want to hold you any longer, but again, I want to thank you for the process, for the opportunity. I think this is probably the closest I've been to a superintendency role thus far, and so that experience is invaluable, and so I just thank you again for putting me in the position to be able to do this.
Okay. It's mutually beneficial. I really appreciate being able to see it, not just to see you in action and give you the feedback and the input about how it went, but also just for purposes of informing our future work around this particular topic. It was super helpful.
Well, you are welcome, and thank you for allowing me to be outside. The hustle and bustle of the indoors is a little much for a video, so hopefully the dogs barking or anything didn't interrupt too much.
Absolutely, Mike. Go have a great rest of your weekend.
You too. You too.